Censorship's been a pretty big topic lately, and recently, Senator Bernie Sanders had an interview with Ezra Klein, and the topic of Twitter banning Donald Trump, or more importantly, liberals being willing to censor individuals they disagree with, that came up. And Bernie Sanders gave an answer that I disagreed with based on framing. So let's hear what he had to say, and I'll explain.
Do you think there's truth to the substantive critique of contemporary liberalism here, that liberals have become too censorious and too willing to use their cultural and corporate and political power to censor or suppress ideas and products to defend them?
Look, you have a former president in Trump who is a racist, a sexist, a homophobe, a xenophobe, a pathological liar, an authoritarian, somebody who doesn't believe in the rule of law. This is a bad news guy. But if you're asking me, do I feel particularly comfortable that the then president of the United States could not express his views on Twitter? I don't feel comfortable about that. Now, I don't know what the answer is. Do you want hate speech and conspiracy theories traveling all over this country? No. Do you want the internet to be used for authoritarian purposes and insurrection, if you like? No, you don't. So how you balance that, I don't know, but it is an issue that we have got to be thinking about, because if anybody who thinks, yesterday it was Donald Trump who was banned and tomorrow it could be somebody else who has a very different point of view. So I don't like giving that much power to a handful of high-tech people.
Well, luckily he's a United States senator, and senators can do something about, scaling back some of the power that these Silicon Valley companies have. And look, luckily there are antitrust lawsuits that companies like Facebook are facing right now. That's part of the reason why they've been able to become as powerful as they are, squashing competition, buying up their competition, and ensuring that they maintain the power that they have. But I don't know why the left tends to have this habit of using Donald Trump in the framing of the argument that Bernie Sanders just made there.
What do you mean?
Why do people have such a difficult time differentiating between actual censorship, right? So like, we don't even have to wait for the future. Leftists have already been censored on a lot of these platforms. What should be done is an actual investigation to see, is it based on ideology or is it based on these ridiculous, faulty algorithms that are ridden with flaws? They're opaque, so we don't know how they work. And yeah, there have been all sorts of things that have been demonetized, all sorts of things that have been taken off these platforms. Like, people have built their entire careers from creating original content for these platforms. And then before they know it, all of a sudden, all this stuff is either taken down or demonetized. So that is a legitimate argument to make. Donald Trump and Alex Jones and people like that, why are people pretending like they fall into the same bucket of censorship? They don't.
I don't know.
Donald Trump had years and years and years and years and endless years of breaking the rules, the guidelines, whatever. On the day that the Capitol was broken into, by these insurrectionists, he continued spreading disinformation and misinformation on Twitter. That's why he got banned. That's why he got banned. And look, I'm not angry with Bernie Sanders. I disagree with his framing. I think that there needs to be a distinction between people in positions of power who abuse their power and act as though they're above the rules, above the law. They don't have to abide by anything. And yes, Alex Jones falls under that category as well. I mean, Alex Jones was inciting violence against parents who had lost their children in the Sandy Hook shooting. That's what Alex Jones did. That type of speech, by the way, isn't even protected by the government. Inciting violence is not protected by the First Amendment. I did a long video on that for my previous show, No Filter. Watch it, you'll get what I'm saying. But in this case, I don't have time, but yes, it was a good show. But you can make this argument about censorship without immediately jumping to the very person who should have been banned from Twitter, and that's Donald Trump.
Exactly. Yeah, it's oh God, I hate the whole argument because so many people are so either intentionally dishonest about their goals, the words they use, and some are maybe more accidentally dishonest, or they lead the conversation in a dishonest way. So look, I don't agree with some of what Bernie said there, but I have more of a problem with the framing of the question, because that was Ezra Klein. Yeah, Ezra said a bunch of words as if they have meanings when they don't. Like liberals censor. That doesn't mean one thing. That doesn't mean anything close to one thing. Censor and cancel have very purposefully, by a lot of people, been swollen to encapsulate such a broad range of experiences that using the word as if it has a specific meaning, I think counts as lying now. Because what does it mean to be canceled? It could mean that someone tweeted about you and you didn't like it, and that was literally it. Like one person tweeted to you, like go to jail for the crimes you committed. All of that is called being canceled or called being censored. Private companies making a decision not to give a book deal to someone, that counts as being canceled. Banned from a platform counts as canceled. Losing a job, being criticized. Like they don't mean anything. And so when you use it that way, you are playing into a very careful, purposeful construction from the right. They came up with the idea of political correctness, and for 20 years that meant that the only thing that counts as censorship or being against free speech, and you know what, we're just gonna continue to lump what private corporations and the government does as the same thing and imply that's the same thing, that now all of that is on the left. That eventually lost some of its cultural cachet, and so they came up with being canceled, and there's another 20 years where that's the only thing that counts. It doesn't matter how many boycotts the right does, it doesn't matter how many movies they get pulled, none of that matters, it doesn't count, because the construct is PC or cancel, which we're gonna pretend is a neutral term, but is designed to only count when those on the left or arguably in the center do it. That is like 30 years of American society. We're in like a slightly new phase of it because the cancel thing is slightly new. It's the same thing, and it's designed for them to get audiences off of saying they're against it. It's designed for them to pitch themselves to be victims because they were canceled. They will tell you on like the biggest cable shows on TV how canceled they've been. They'll write long tracts in the books they have published to get paid for about how they've been canceled and all of that. The whole thing is a sham, and that's why I hate smart people like Ezra Klein asking questions about it, trying to be really serious about it, as if none of that I just said is true, and Bernie engaging with it whether I agree or not. The whole thing is so dishonest.
Yeah, and I think that's really at the core of what's so frustrating about that exchange, right? And I don't, and look, I think that Bernie has the right instinct, right? Because we should be concerned about these platforms becoming, well, they've already become incredibly powerful, but look, they can decide overnight to basically destroy everything that you've built on their platform, right? If they decide that they're gonna change their algorithm in one way or the other, you don't know how they did it or what their decision was. Like these are issues when people like rely on these platforms for their livelihood. These are issues, and we've been seeing it and experiencing it for a while. That is a legitimate thing to bring up in the framing of your answer to Ezra Klein. But immediately jumping to the worst offender, which is the man who encouraged people to do what they did on January 6th. I just don't think you're making a strong argument. And for all the leftists who are like, oh, it's a slippery slope, it's a slippery slope. I got news for you. The slope has already slipped. Like people were already being punished for their ideology, whether it was done intentionally or through, like I said, there needs to be an investigation into how these decisions are made, because if the decisions are made based on political views, I think that is a problem, right? But I think the far bigger problem for now is that we don't understand how these algorithms work, and these platforms are intentionally opaque when it comes to these types of decisions and algorithms. And obviously I'm not just talking about Twitter here. I'm talking about YouTube, I'm talking about Facebook, I'm talking about everything. And it obviously affects us, but it affects everyone who wants to put out their own original content without having to rely on signing some deal with mainstream media.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.